Discover 7 bone-chilling signs that prove God has chosen you for an epic destiny today. The sky tore open that evening, unleashing a tempest unlike any seen in Millwood. Thunder roared like a fierce beast, shaking the very ground beneath feet. People looked up, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. What was it that stirred the clouds into such fury? Little did they know, this storm was merely a prelude, a warning of unimaginable events about to unfold. As the rain poured in sheets, something even stranger caught the townsfolk's attention. A tall figure, cloaked in shadow, stood atop the old cemetery hill. Was it a man or something else? The darkness seemed to cling to it like a protective shroud. Whispers erupted in the crowd. "Look! Do you see it?" They felt an electric chill coursing through their veins. It was as if the air itself was charged with something ancient, something cosmic. Eyes darted nervously, children clutched their mothers tightly, and adults exchanged uneasy glances. What does this mean? Then came the first sign. The power flickered and buzzed, and out of nowhere, a piercing scream echoed through the wind. A woman dropped to her knees, gasping. "Did you feel that?" she cried, clutching her chest, eyes darting. "It's like someone pulled the breath right from my lungs." Others nodded, some trembling, others simply frozen in fear. It was only the start of something even more disturbing. Just as tension escalated, a figure leapt from the shadows at the cemetery's edge, brandishing a candle that flickered like a heartbeat. People gasped. Had he come as a messenger, or a harbinger of doom? "Listen!" he bellowed, voice shaking yet clear, "beware the signs. God's chosen you, and only the worthy shall rise." His eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting fear and hope in equal measure. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, and for an instant, a stillness enveloped Millwood. In that silence, a voice, both low and resonant, seemed to originate from the very core of the earth. "Awaken the chosen." It beckoned. People froze, a shared fear washed over them. What choice did they have? What did the darkness want? As they stared into the storm, absorbing each pulse of danger, the weight of the words pressed down, thick as fog, leaving them yearning for answers. What awaited them as this dreadful night unfolded? Would they truly find their destinies, or would fear consume them all? The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows around the cemetery, where the stranger stood resolute, eyes piercing through the darkness. "Can you hear me?" he shouted, the wind howling like a restless spirit. The crowd, captivated by his presence, swayed as if under a spell, their hearts racing in unison. "It begins now. You must heed the signs." As if in response, the sky unleashed a fresh volley of lightning, illuminating the figure and splitting the night in two. Gasps erupted from the crowd, a collective intake of breath. Many instinctively took a step back as the realization dawned upon them: this wasn't merely a storm, it was something divine, something incomprehensible. "Do you believe?" the stranger demanded, voice trembling with urgency. "Each of you carries a spark, a purpose waiting to ignite." The warmth of his words clashed violently against the cold fears that gripped their hearts. People exchanged looks, fear and curiosity dancing in their eyes. Some began to nod, emboldened by the sheer intensity surrounding them. Suddenly, another scream pierced the night, a sound so raw it sent chills down spines. From the darkness, a young girl burst forth, terror-stricken. "My brother!" "He is not breathing." Her voice trembled, each word heavy with dread. The crowd parted like water, revealing a small figure crumpled at the base of an old gravestone. Panic surged as people rushed to help, the air thick with despair. The stranger abandoned his post, casting aside the candle, rushing toward them. As he knelt beside the boy, he raised a hand, trembling but resolute. This is the test. Only the chosen can guide the lost. However, doubts clouded the air. Was the boy truly gone, or was it only the beginning of an ordeal? The crowd held its breath, and even the storm seemed to hush as they watched, caught in a web of fear and hope. Pray. The stranger commanded, his voice rising above the chaos. Call upon the light within you. With every word he spoke, it felt as though the very earth vibrated with his demand. People hesitated but soon began to murmur names, pleas for help rising like a tide. Then, without warning, the candle, left behind on the ground, flickered back to life. In its glow, something magical began to shift. The boy's chest, once still, started to rise and fall. He is alive. Someone gasped, urgency spiraling through the crowd. Murmurs of disbelief erupted. Was it a miracle or a trick of the mind? The stranger pushed away the gathering doubt, eyes ablaze with determination. This is just the first sign. God calls for you. With every heartbeat, the storm outside raged on, but the fog enveloping Millwood seemed to lift, if only slightly. People began to step forward, feelings of unease morphing into a palpable sense of purpose, yet, as hope flickered around them, an ominous rumble erupted from deep within the earth. You may be chosen, a voice whispered on the winds, echoing ominously over the hill. But you will face trials that'll test your very soul. Murmurs of fear returned. What trials? What would they be asked to face? The crowd shivered, dread clawing at the edges of their newfound hope. For every promise of destiny came a shadow of sacrifice. As the storm reached a climactic roar, the stranger looked at the gathered masses, each face alive with both fear and determination. Do you have the strength to confront the darkness within yourselves? And just then, the ground shook violently beneath them, sending shivers of panic throughout the throng. The night was far from over, and the answers they sought seemed shrouded in the gathering clouds. But as fear and courage mingled, one thought shared by all became clear: whatever awaited them would either define their destinies or shatter them forever. What lay ahead was an uncertain path, a journey woven with trials, revelations, and dark choices. And as they braced for what could come next, the question lingered: how far were they willing to go to uncover the truth of their epic destinies? The earth heaved beneath them, a visceral reminder of the chaos lurking beyond their fragile hopes. People instinctively moved closer, seeking strength in numbers, hearts pounding like war drums in the tension-clad air. Each tremor flowed through the crowd like electricity, igniting a storm of emotions. Fear mixed with anticipation bubbled in their chests, growing heavier as the stranger raised his voice, a beacon amid the turmoil. This is just the beginning. He shouted, eyes ablaze with fervor. You felt it, Haven Tu. That pull towards something greater. It's time to awaken your spirits. But not everyone felt stirred by his invocations. A murmur of dissent rippled through the crowd. What if he is lying? Someone whispered. What if this is just a trick? The seed of doubt sprouted wide-eyed among the onlookers, digging deeper as they looked towards the boy, now slowly breathing yet still pale as a ghost. Was this miracle merely smoke and mirrors? And then came a sudden crack. The ground split wider still, revealing jagged edges where darkness seeped forth like something alive, clamoring for release. Gasps and screams erupted, swallowing the night, thickening the fog of dread that lingered over Millwood. What is happening? A voice cried near the back. What have we done? A heavy silence fell over the group as everyone turned their gazes toward the shuddering earth, their collective panic tangling in the air while the lightning illuminated the scene in rapid bursts. Shadows danced along the graves, each wail, each crackle of thunder seemingly carving out a warning. Step back. The stranger shouted, his voice cutting through their fear. Step back and stand firm. It was then they sensed it, a pulsing vibration beneath their feet, steady, rhythmic. As if the heart of the world itself was beating, echoing their internal struggles. Could it be true? Were they being called to something dark yet enchanting? Something that tested their very existence. "Take my hand," he offered to the girl as she fought back tears, her small fingers trembling with uncertainty as she stepped toward him. The dead cannot hold sway over the living. We are the chosen. With a deep breath, she reached out, gripping his hand tightly, grounding herself in his fierce determination. Others watched, torn between instinctual fear and a yearning they hadn't realized existed until this moment. As the storm raged above, something shifted. Eerie howls of wind became a haunting melody, dancing through the trees, a promise or a threat, it was hard to tell. The crowd began to inch closer, led by the connection taking shape in the air. "Do you hear it?" a man shouted, eyes glistening with the weight of his disbelief. "It's calling to us. It knows we're here." Tension rippled like a current. People stepped forward, hearts pounding, hope igniting once more. The boy, fully alive now, found strength. With wild resolution, he stood, gripping a jagged rock that had been dislodged by the quake. "We must face what lies below," he declared, choking on fear yet radiating strength. "We can't run from this. This is our time." The crowd erupted, rallying to his cry, a swell of voices chanting a mixture of fear and resolve. But beneath that chorus, something sinister pulsed. The whispers returned, brushing against their minds like talons. Trials await. Sacrifices will be demanded. A chilling breeze swept through the cemetery, freezing their confidence. And in that moment, as they grappled with the questions gnawing at their hearts, a chilling reality sank in. Was this a chance to rise together, or a descent into madness? In the rapidly darkening night, as the storm reached a boiling intensity once more, the air hummed with anticipation. Every soul now faced a choice: a step forward towards the unknown or a retreat into the safety of ignorance. What lay ahead was more than mere trials, it was destiny woven with shadows. Each second held a weight that pressed down as they prepared to confront whatever lurked beyond their comprehension. And as they stood together at the precipice of fear and courage, one question echoed above the chaos: what truly awaited them in the darkness, and were they ready to pay the ultimate price for the light? The tension thickened, a palpable force wrapping around them as the crowd stood at the edge of something far deeper than the earth itself. Whispers of fear mingled with wild hopes, creating a cacophony that demanded to be heard over the raging storm. The boy tightened his grip on the jagged rock, knuckles whitening, as he glanced around, searching for familiar faces. "We're meant to be here," he called out, voice cracking yet undeniable. "We feel it. We can't let fear shackle us." The stranger, standing firm at his side, nodded with fervor, eyes bright with a mix of hope and delirium. "Embrace your calling. You dare to confront the darkness? Then show it your light." Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the deepening fissures in the earth, each flash revealing swirling shadows spiraling upwards as if calling back lost souls. With each tremor, the ground cried out, a rumble both menacing and maddening, sending shivers through the crowd. A frantic woman at the back stumbled forward, her tears carving a path through the dirt on her cheeks. "What if we don't want this? What if we aren't the chosen ones? We're just ordinary people," she pleaded, desperation clawing at her throat. "Ordinary is our greatest power," shouted a voice nearby. A man with wild hair stepped through the throng, his eyes ablaze with conviction. "We've grown complacent. The darkness has fed on our complacency. It wants us to turn away." A low growl emanated deep from the fissures, the sound reverberating through the bones of the earth. The crowd collectively recoiled, hearts racing, pulses fluttering in their throats. "What's down there?" a youth whispered, his face drained of color. "What if it consumes us?" "Unity!" the stranger yelled, lifting his arms high, commanding their attention. "We face this together. We become the light no matter how dim." And then came the echoes, soft yet insistent. They curled around the edges of sanity, whispering promises and threats with equal intensity. "Sacrifice, sacrifice!" It was haunting, weaving through the crowd like a spectre, staring into the widening crack in the ground, doubt pressed down heavy. Many began to falter, to stay rooted in fear. But a few stepped forward, hands extended, ready to grasp hope being offered. Feel each pulse. The boy shouted, heartbeat in sync with the vibrating land. This is our chance to break the chains of doubt. Let the darkness see our fire. With a roar that mingled with the storm, the crowd surged forward, the shared energy breathing life into their floundering spirits. They reached for each other, gripping hands firmly, forming a chain of resolve. A surge of light flickered between them, a fire ignited by courage, burning away the shadows that threatened to envelop their minds. And it was then they felt it, a pulse, a response from deep within the earth. It surged beneath them, a dark rhythm intertwining with their shared heartbeat, calling them closer. Answer us, it seemed to whisper, show us your worth. But just as the connection deepened, the ground shrieked again, a gaping maw opening wide, offering them glimpses of eldritch horrors, visions of grotesque faces twisted with despair, shrieks of anguish clawing at their insides. Turn back! Someone shouted, panic igniting amid the fervor, and the chain began to break. One by one, fingers slipped free, spreading the fear once more. Stay! The boy cried, his voice swallowed by growing chaos. We have to face this together. But as the darkness writhed like a living creature, instead of retreating, the crowd stilled, caught in frozen horror and exhilaration. No one knew if their choice would lead to salvation or doom. The whispers grew louder, a relentless, intoxicating promise loud as thunder, demanding release, demanding something very particular from each one of them. Were they truly brave enough to seize the destiny that awaited, or would the shadows drag them into oblivion? As another flash of lightning illuminated the raw terror in the crowd's faces, a chilling question echoed through the storm. What would they be willing to offer to face the horrors? Whatever lay below. The ground groaned, a low, bone-chilling sound echoing around them. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a timer pressing upon the gathered crowd as they stood at the precipice of fear and decision. The boy could see the uncertainty radiating from the faces surrounding him, eyes wide in disbelief, breaths caught in their throats. They were teetering on the edge of some profound truth, and the whispering shadows below churned with anticipation. Don't you feel it? He shouted, desperation fueling his voice. This is more than a choice. It's our moment. He clenched the jagged rocks tighter, feeling the earth's pulse throb beneath his feet. Alive and hungry, another flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating the growing chasm, revealing what it truly was, a gateway to chaos and despair. Visions surged forth, skittering across their minds like scattered autumn leaves. Faces decorated in anguish, cries that begged for redemption, and the unsettling sensation of being watched. They were not alone. Not just with each other, but with the very darkness they faced. A sudden gale whipped through the crowd, sending shivers down spines, rustling hair like dark ribbons in the wind. What if it desires us? A trembling voice cried out from the back. Fear dripped from their words, pooling into a heavy silence that choked their resolve. The boy searched the faces, seeking the fire of courage, hoping to ignite a spark before it was too late. The stranger, emboldened, took a step into the light, his silhouette framed by the flickering storm. We came here for a reason. Together, we can push back the shadows. We must. His voice wavered but held a fierce intent. We must give them our truth. As he spoke, the earth snarled again, a deep rumble that rose like smoke, thickening the air around them. A shadowy form slithered up from the crack, oozing like ink spilling on parchment. It was a writhing mass, full of eyes that glinted with malice, begging for a sacrifice. No. The boy could feel the grip of fear tightening around him like a vice. We don't have to give in. Fight it. Fight for our future. His voice, a beacon against the encroaching dread, ignited something within the crowd, stirring the embers of hope still flickering. The moment froze, a heartbeat lost in a storm, when an elderly woman stepped forward, hand raised defiantly. I've seen things none of you have but fear. It can only control you if you let it. Her voice, worn but powerful, washed over them like a wave, cascading through their despair, urging them onward. The darkness recoiled, the loose tendrils drifting back, as if at the sting of light. Encouraged, more stepped forward, hands rising with her lead. They gathered behind the boy, forming a front against the shadows that clawed at their resolve, but then, just as the air began to thrum with energy, the ground beneath them heaved violently. Shouts of terror erupted, and the chain of unity threatened to shatter again. Panic-ignited people were pulling away, desperate to escape the reach of the fate looming below. "Stay!" The boys screamed as the earth quaked beneath their feet. "Don't let it win." It was chaos, a tumultuous sea of bodies caught between fight and flight. But deep down, they felt it, a tugging warmth igniting within their chests, battling against the icy fingers of fear. They were standing on a fulcrum, moments from a revelation. Suddenly, a blinding light burst forth, scattering the shadows momentarily. Tension hung on the brink like a held breath, filled with a choice ripe for the taking. The boy felt his heart align with the pulse of the earth, beating faster, stronger. Would they unite in defiance against the darkness, or would they retreat, leaving the shadows to complete their desperate feast? The question loomed large, a sword poised to fall, inexorably linked to their very fate, and as silence hovered for just a fraction too long, anticipation sparked with deadly intensity. What would their choice reveal? The silence shattered like glass, splintering the tension that clung to the air. The blinding light pulsed, bathing them in a warmth that felt like a desperate embrace. It beckoned, pulling them toward a decision, a fate waiting to be claimed or denied. Eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now shone with determination. The boy sensed the shift, the spark of courage igniting into flames of resolve. They were ready, or so it seemed. "Together!" he cried, his voice charging through the chaos. "We fight for each other, for our future." A roar echoed in response, a surge of unity that pushed fear back into its corner. They stepped closer, forming a wall of humanity, hearts beating as one. It was a brave stand against the nightmare emerging from the chasm. Shadows clawed for them, but now, they fueled each other's resolve. Then came another tremor, more violent than the last, rattling bones and hearts alike. The ground seemed to unleash a pained wail, and cracks spiderwebbed further, spreading darkness like a disease through their midst. The boy felt it was despair moving through them. Or perhaps the darkness was testing their resolve, probing for weakness. "Focus!" shouted the elderly woman, her voice a rock against the tides of panic. "We are not their sacrifice." In that moment, with chaos around them, she stepped forward again, a bright light shining in her eyes. "Speak your truth. Fight with your words." The boy watched as others began to shout. Truths spilled from trembling lips. "I lost my father to fear. I will not cower any longer. We deserve to be heard." Each proclamation pushed back against the blackness, illuminating the area around them, but then, the shadows lunged, tendrils reaching, curling around ankles like smoke. Gasps filled the air as some were pulled down, swallowed by the desolation. The boy's heart thundered in his chest. "Fight!" he yelled again, but it felt frantic, unhinged. Chaos erupted, shouts of terror merged with cries of defiance. The old woman too was struggling, fighting against the darkness that dragged at her. "Light! We need light!" The boy's eyes darted around. There! In the distance, a flicker of luminescence glowed, a small orb of brilliant white, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Over there!" he screamed, pointing with a trembling hand. "We must reach it." The crowd surged, their feet pounding on the trembling ground, moving toward that beacon of hope. As they drew closer, the shadows fought back fiercely, coiling around limbs, trying to drag them down. The boy felt the weight of the darkness, how it clung, whispering horror fueled by fear. "Stay strong!" he hollered, pushing against the tide, reaching for the orb, feeling the heat radiate off it. Just when the darkness threatened to snuff out his hope, their fingertips brushed the glimmering sphere, sending a shockwave of light bursting outward, illuminating the space with blinding brightness. The darkness recoiled, shrieking as if burned by the light. The boy felt the energy surge through him, electric and powerful. It felt like liberation. Push! Someone screamed, and they did. They threw themselves against the shadows, propelled by that newfound power, light washing over them. But then, amidst the fray, a jarring truth emerged. A figure rise from the chasm, cloaked in shadows, eyes glowing like embers. It let out a guttural laugh, chilling them to their bones. "This is only the beginning." It echoed, as if time itself hung in the balance. As the boy faced the darkness embodied before them, the warmth of the orb flickering in his hand, he realized their true battle had just begun. They had chosen to fight, but the darkness had not surrendered. The stakes soared higher as dread tightened its grip once more. What did this presence mean for them? Would they rise together, or would despair finally break their unity? The air was thick with imminent dread, and fear crept back in, whispering cold truths in their ears. What would the shadows demand next? The ground shifted violently underfoot, as if rebelling against their defiance. The boy's heart raced as the figure towered over them, cloaked in darkness and swirling shadows. He could feel the heat of fear rising in his throat, but he pushed it down, determined to forge onward. "Stay together!" he shouted, trying to rally the frightened faces all around him. Yet, even his voice sounded small and trembling against the roar of the shadows. The air thickened as darkness roiled, stretching out toward them in a hungry wave. Each person seemed trapped in their own battle against the shadows. Some struggled to maintain their footing, while others cried out, faces reflecting stark terror. The elderly woman stood tall, her hands raised toward the figure, defiance etched across her features. "Your voices are weapons," she yelled. "Use them. Yell your truth." The boy could feel the urgency of her words. Without thinking, he shouted, "I refuse to be afraid anymore." Others followed suit, voices rising together, weaving solidarity into a powerful shield against the encroaching darkness. But with every truth spoken, the shadowy figure laughed, an icy sound that sent chills racing down spines. "You think words can save you? I will consume your light." It screeched, each syllable dripping with malice. Suddenly, the ground erupted, and with a thunderous crash, the surface buckled, creating a monstrous chasm beneath their feet. The boy glanced down as the abyss yawned wide, darkness swirling like the depths of a nightmare. Echoing heartbeats filled the silence, powerful yet terrified, as it swallowed the guttural laughter. "Keep your footing," the old woman commanded. "Do not waver." Gritting his teeth, the boy tightened his grip on the warm orb. The flickering light pulsed like a heartbeat in his palm. The edges of his vision blackened, flickers of despair tried to claw through. The shadows roared back, growing bolder, like predators sensing vulnerability. In an act of instinct, the boy stepped forward, positioning the orb before him. "This light is our hope," he proclaimed, voice ringing with newfound strength. It won't go out. For a moment, uncertainty lingered, the air crackling with tension. But someone from the crowd stepped up, heart racing, eyes widening with understanding. "Together, our light is stronger," she cried, and one by one, they raised their hands, touching the orb in unison. The boy gasped as rays shot outward, a blinding bright force merging their lights until it formed a bubble of brilliance surrounding them. The figure recoiled, its dark visage contorting with rage. "You cannot hide in that light. This is only a temporary reprieve," it hollered, voice like thunder, shaking the ground beneath them. The air buzzed with energy, and for an instant, a spark of hope ignited among them, fueled by shared pain, dreams, and truths laid bare. Yet, even under the might of their collective light, the shadows twisted hungrily, gnashing teeth that glimmered like stars in the void. "What can we do?" someone whispered, doubt creeping back in. The boy swallowed hard, lifting his chin. "We find the source of the darkness. We must face it not just as warriors, but as one." As murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire, the darkness shivered, recoiling slightly. The boy grasped the orb tightly. He knew confronting that shadowy figure wouldn't be easy. Their strength was faltering, and with the stakes rising, the abyss seemed almost to laugh along with it. In a moment of stillness, a horrifying revelation surged within him. What if the darkness isn't just some faceless enemy? What if it has a name? He glanced at the figure, eyes wide. The shadows around it thickened, wrapping tighter. The realization sent a spike of shock through him, but he couldn't share it yet, not until he was sure. All eyes turned to him, waiting for direction, hope shining through their fear. Let us move forward. His voice cracked, but he pressed on. Together, we face it. We have to know what we're truly battling. With hearts pounding and fear coursing through their veins, they prepared to confront the nightmare. The boy steeled himself, uncertainty and dread battling within him. But the chilling laughter echoed once more, lingering in the air, planting seeds of doubt. You shall not escape your fate. As the shadows blazed brightly with malicious intent, he felt the weight of their journey looming ahead. What would they discover when they faced the darkness? Would the truth bind them together or tear them apart? The answer hung just out of reach, lurking in the heart of the growing storm. The boy took a deep breath, the air still thick around them, saturated with the sharp tang of fear. He could feel the heat of the orb pulsing in his hand, a beacon of hope amid the chaos. Yet, the laughter of the shadowy figure reverberated in his ears, drowning out the battle cries of his comrades. Do you feel it? He asked, turning towards the group. It's like every word we speak is somehow giving it strength. A flicker of doubt crossed the old woman's face, but she shook her head defiantly. No, it is listening, yes. But the moment we stop believing is when it truly wins. Do you understand? The boy nodded, even as the shadows twisted around them, whispering promises of despair. Panic clenched at his chest, but he couldn't let it show. Instead, he focused on the orb, its warm glow cutting through the coldness. We can't back down. We need to push through those shadows and find out where they come from. The group remained silent, each person grappling with their own fears. We have to break through that barrier of darkness, one of the younger members whispered, her voice barely more than a tremor. But how? As if sensing their hesitation, the dark figure leaned closer, its face obscured yet somehow eerily familiar. You're already fighting a losing battle, soon you'll be swallowed whole. Its voice oozed with condescension, taunting them. They needed to act. The boy stepped forward, fueled by a rush of adrenaline. We have to channel our purpose. If we find the source of this darkness, we can break its hold over us. That notion ignited something in the crowd, flickers of determination suddenly sparking hope in their eyes. Together. The old woman shouted. Our truths can shatter the darkness. Speak your fears aloud. One by one, the group took a step forward, their voices trembling but rising in chorus. I fear losing my family, I fear never being enough, I fear the darkness will consume us. Each fear shared was like a thread unraveling stitches in an invisible cloak surrounding them. With every declaration, the shadows writhed uncomfortably, recoiling before their truth. It was working. Keep going, the boy prompted, feeling a rush of energy surge through him. Our fears make us real. They're our strength. Soon, the entire crowd shouted their truths together, and the air hummed with an electric charge. The shadows seemed to waver, flickering as if they could barely withstand the intensity of their unity, but then, just as they felt they were breaking through, the laughter erupted again, more sinister this time. You think you found power? I am the truth beneath your fears. You are nothing without me. The shadows surged in response, a tidal wave of darkness crashing against their fragile barrier of light. The boy's heart sank. They were pushing forward, only to find themselves against an even fiercer force. I want to let it win. He shouted, desperation clawing at him. We can face it. We have to find the heart of this. The group remained steadfast, shouting out louder in unity, but the shadows began to seep into their light, twisting and coiling like a dark serpent. Their collective light flickered, threatening to extinguish. Focus. The old woman urged, eyes blazing with determination. Remember why you fight. Suddenly, the boy felt the orb grow hotter, an ember flaring up. It's here. This light is the key. We need to find the source with it, use it. Just then, the laughter transformed into a cacophony, overshadowing their desperate cries. You can't escape from yourself. Embrace what you truly are. And in that instant, the boy recognized the truth lurking beneath the surface. The darkness was not just a distant enemy, but a reflection of their own internal struggles. What had they truly been fighting against all along? As realization dawned, the shadows surged forth, threatening to ripple through their fragile defenses. One last push, that's all they needed. The boy's voice broke through the chaos, shaking with urgency. We have to stand firm. We must see how far we've come, together. With a surge of energy and unity, they prepared to face not just the shadows before them, but the darkness within each one of them. But could they truly confront their own fears? Would they emerge stronger or fall deeper into the abyss? The battle loomed ahead, the air charged with unspoken questions. Would the shadows prove too powerful, or could they harness the strength of their shared truths? As the darkness surged ever closer, the boy steeled himself for the reckoning they had yet to face. The shadows clamored around them, cold and relentless, but the group stood their ground, united by more than just fear. This was a pact forged in the fire of their truths. Each heartbeat echoed in the boy's ears, forming a rhythm that matched the pulsing orb in his hand. It was almost as if the light recognized the surge of courage, gathering warmth, urging them to push through. Focus on the orb. The boy shouted, feeling as though every word could cut through the haze. It's guiding us toward the source of the darkness. We need to trust its light, trust ourselves. The old woman's gaze never wavered from the shadows, even as tendrils of darkness curled closer, brushing against the edges of their collective light. Tell me again why you fight. She cried out, her voice a beacon through the chaos, demanding clarity in their cause. Their voices rose again, each truth weaving a stronger layer of protection, each fear unspooled and cast aside. I fight for my son. I fight against my own doubts. I fight for a brighter future. With every declaration, the fabric of the darkness thinned, but it wouldn't give in easily. The shadowy figure loomed larger, its laughter slicing through the air like a jagged knife. You really believe your petty truths can defeat me? I feed on your insecurities. I am the shadow of every regret, your every unspoken fear. Suddenly, a terrifying thought surged in the boy's mind. What if they weren't just battling an external enemy? The darkness was alive around them, but were they merely fueling the shadows with their pain? The boy's breath hitched. What if it's not just a trap? He whispered to himself, the sheer weight of that revelation pushing against him like a concrete wall. You have to fight it within. He yelled, determination burning in his chest. Don't just speak your fears, show them you're stronger. Fight. The whispers of despair began to quiet as hands reached toward the orb, their combined warmth igniting brighter. The boy could feel the vibrations of hope ripple through the crowd, cascading over the darkness like waves crashing onto a rocky shore. Just then, a flash of blinding light erupted from the orb, a beacon that sliced through the shadow's grip. The shadows recoiled, dragged back into the abyss, hissing like disturbed serpents. In that moment, the boys saw the way forward. The way through the shadows would not simply be a fight against their external fears but an acceptance of their own struggles as part of their truth. Together, he shouted, galvanizing them into action. Embrace your light. We rise by facing who we are. The group, fueled by the burning light of the orb, surged forward. And in an instant, they were not just pushing against the darkness but plunging into it, wrapping it with their honesty and collective hope. With every step, a deeper glow formed around them, illuminating the path through the encroaching shadows. Yet, as they pressed deeper into the darkness, something shifted. An uneasy silence wrapped around them. The laughter faded, replaced by an ominous stillness that clawed at their senses. Had they driven it back, or were they merely walking into a darker void? The boy's heart raced. The shadows hadn't just disappeared. They were waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. He could feel it, the cold dread winding through his veins like ice, twisting his insides into knots. "Stay close," he commanded, though doubt tinged his voice. "We need to stay united." But then, the ground beneath them began to crack. A low rumble echoed, like thunder approaching from far away. They were no longer standing still, the very world around them seemed to pulse with life, and it was turning against them. Just as panic began to grip the edges of their hearts, a new figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked and powerful. It stepped forward, its eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. "You think you can break free? You're merely puppets dancing in a game far beyond your understanding." The boy felt breath catch in his throat. Who was this newcomer? Friend or foe? And more importantly, what game? Were they truly playing? The shadows writhed restlessly, biding time as the group stood frozen, heartbeats echoing in a tempest of fear and uncertainty. The core of the darkness loomed ahead, deep and unfathomable. Could they truly face the new horror that awaited, or would the weight of the shadows draw them deeper into despair? As the air thickened with tension, the boy braced himself. They were on the edge of revelation. Would the truth set them free or lead to their demise? The air crackled with tension as the cloaked figure loomed larger before them, shadows whispering ominous truths. The boy's heart thumped loudly in his chest, drowning out his thoughts. Fear washed over him, tainting his resolve, yet he felt the warmth of the orb pulsing in his hands, a quiet reminder of their power, if they chose to wield it. "Do you really want to know the truth?" the figure asked, voice deep and echoing like rolling thunder. "You seek destiny, yet you are bound by your own shadows. Every fear, every doubt, the darkness feeds on them." There was a moment of silence, pregnant with fear and anticipation, as the crowd exchanged glances full of uncertainty. "But they don't define us," the boy shouted, conviction igniting in his voice. "Together, we can break free. We're more than our fears." The crowd hesitated, doubt flickering like a dying ember, but then the elderly woman stood tall, her unwavering spirit shining like a beacon amid the shadows. "Do not falter. We hold the light of truth within us," she declared, lifting her arms high, drawing others in. The shared warmth pulsed around them, a tether connecting their spirits. The crowd began to echo her sentiment, their voices rising. "Together," they shouted. "For our future." The shadows around them screamed, momentarily retreating, as if in agony. The boy sensed the fear twisting around the cloaked figure like a tangible thing. This was their moment. They surged forward, locked in unity, breathing as one. As their voices blended into a powerful enough chorus, he raised the orb high above, summoning the light to break through. With a brilliant flash, the orb erupted, casting brilliant rays shooting in all directions, illuminating the dark space. The shadows recoiled, their screams mingling with the lightning in a petrifying symphony. The boy could feel each flicker of faith inside him growing stronger, coalescing into something profound. This fear transformed into clarity. "What lies in the heart of your truth?" the figure spat, even as the shadows struggled against the light encroaching upon it. "Is it courage? Or will you cower like the others?" "No," the boy shouted, adrenaline igniting his spirit. He felt invincible, as if every truth spoken by the crowd scattered the shadows like confetti in the wind. "We won't be shackled by fear or doubt. We shine brighter together, like stars in the night." And in that proclamation, a brighter core of light exploded from the orb, powered by their unity, but the figure laughed again, a chilling sound that rippled through the air. "Fools! Believing your light can chase me away? You're trapped in the dark web of your realities." In that moment, he could feel the shadows pulling desperately, clawing for purchase over the displayed light. The ground trembled beneath their feet, threatening to swallow them whole. "Push forward!" the boy cried out, voice piercing through the chaos. "Show it our strength." They were clinging together, eyes wide with determination. Those fears had no hold here. Beneath their joined forces, the shadows dissipated, coiling back as if their very essence was being attacked. And in that marked moment of unity, something profound unfolded. Each flicker of doubt transformed every spoken fear, now mingling with newfound strength, weaving an invisible tapestry around them. "Let them see our truth," the elderly woman shouted, her voice unyielding. "This is our fight. Our reality cannot be dictated by fear alone." The crowd roared in agreement, a storm of dedication fueling every syllable. So, they pressed forward, every foot pounding against the earth, every voice melding into a symphony of hope. Each step illuminated stories of sorrow, resilience, and the powerful human spirit in defiance against despair. Then a shift happened. The shadows bristled like static energy before them. The air grew thick, heavy with dread, but the boy felt a surge of heat. The orb glowed fiercely in his grasp. "We are not just fighting this darkness, we resist it as one," he proclaimed. But he could sense the fear still gnawing at hearts. Not all believed this fight would end in victory. As tension escalated, a final surge of collective truth registered in the air. Deep within his spirit, the boy understood the shadows were reflections, expressions of vulnerability begging for acknowledgement. "Face your truths," he urged, emphasizing their depth and connection. "Only then will we truly conquer our darkness." The crowd fell silent, contemplating the unspoken truths that loomed within them. One by one, they began to speak, sharing their burdens, connecting with each other on a deeper level. The confessions bubbled forth, easing the weight of the shadows, inching closer. Then, just as they were intertwining courage with vulnerability, the cloaked figure screamed, "Your truths are useless. I consume what you think is your strength." It was a final declaration as it lunged, an embodiment of chaos radiating menace and doubt, yet, the boy stood firm, clutching the orb close. "You can't devour us. We are not just shadows, we are light bound together. You have no power over us." His voice echoed with newfound conviction, him and his fellow truth-seekers standing like an unbroken wall against the encroaching darkness. And then it happened. The shadows flickered, hesitated, and began to crumble under the intensity of their truths combined with the illuminating light. The ground shook violently, a final threat from beneath, but the boy and the crowd locked eyes, ready for whatever turmoil awaited. The shadows recoiled further, losing their edge, twisted faces fading into the corners of the night. In that moment of unity, amidst the chaos, they emerged victorious together, immersed in each other's strength and courage, warming their hearts as the border between light and dark shifted in their favor. The storm outside rumbled one last time before falling silent, as if acknowledging their victory. The skies above began to clear, revealing stars twinkling like diamonds scattered across the fabric of the night. Hope hung in the air, palpable and real as they exited from the shadows, leaving the darkness behind. The boy looked up at the fading storm, breathing deeply, a sense of relief and triumph coursing through him. They had faced the darkness and returned stronger. The truth was their weapon, and they forged a path toward destined greatness together. And as they dispersed into the quiet night, an undeniable bond had formed beneath the surface, a pledge to carry their light forward, igniting courage that would shine brighter than any shadow. Now it was time to walk into their futures. As the scene faded, the boy's laugh echoed in the silence. "Stand strong. Our stories will never fade." The tension evaporated like morning fog, and the people of Millwood flickered with hope for what lay ahead. But don't let this end here. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support by smashing the like button now. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your participation fuels our journey together, and only true fans understand how vital your support is.